Thank you for joining us live with Miami's Community News. And today we're going to be discussing the development of the old Calusa Golf Course. And we have here Vanessa Vazquez, who is with SaveCalusa.org.
Correct.
You live on the golf course, on the old golf course. And
Correct.
generically, it's referred to as the ring.
Mm-hmm.
So when you drive around that long and winding road, one of those houses is yours.
Correct.
So most recently, there was the Miami-Dade County Commission had a vote. And they said, okay, we're going to let these folks over there, we're going to authorize over 500 homes that are going to go there.
Yes.
This has been a fight off and on since at least 2011. And recently, or since that time, there have been at least 30 articles or videos, TV shows that I've seen repeatedly. Most recently, Ron McGill, who is the face of Zoo Miami, was a speaker.
Yes.
He went there on his time off, on his day off. And when he went there to spend the time urging the commission to consider the animals that were there was they gave him the same amount of time as they would other people,
Yes.
which I happen to disagree with. I
1
think
minute.
that this person is very notable, and they could have made some exceptions if they chose to do that. But since then, there's been articles in Miami Herald, New Times, Billy Corbin Show. 3 or 4 other places. All right. Where is it? Oh, yes.
Uh-huh.
And there's a great picture of him pointing a finger, which is really sort of unique for this position. So tell us about Calusa golf course and what has been happening over the last year or so.
Okay. Well, Calusa is definitely what I like to call the gem of Kendall. It's a beautiful area between 127th Avenue and 137th Avenue, between Kendall and Killian. And basically, it's like you said, it's right now an old golf course that is surrounded by ring homes that are about 15,000 square foot lots. Then if you go right outside the ring, you're surrounded by really nice single family residential homes that are about 10,000 square foot lots or 7,500 square foot lots at the minimum. And then as you keep trending out, right, towards Kendall and 137th Avenue, then you will get one community of townhomes and one community of condos.
And the old golf course is 160 plus acres.
It's 168 acres, right smack in the middle of everything that I just described. So it's gridlocked between all of those thousands and thousands of homes.
And when I go that way, I drive around for my scenic tour. Lots of big trees, and it's so curvy that it's hard to negotiate anyway.
Correct.
And you can't speed because your car is going to slide right out and run into the other side.
Yes, and we've had a couple bad accidents lately.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about what's going on again as far as there's some animals that are on the property there. And I understand I believe it was Fish and Wildlife that got involved with that. And the county commission, in its infinite wisdom, said, yeah, we heard enough of that. We've seen enough of that, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to give them what they want.
Correct. And I don't think they heard enough of that. I don't think we have the correct wildlife studies done on the Calusa golf course, which is one of the main issues that we are pushing. It's 168 acres of open, beautiful green space. Wildlife in Calusa has always existed there. Why? Because before it was closed down, it was a golf course. It's always been our main green space in the community. And within that green space, we have a lot of lakes. One of them happens to be a beautiful rookery.
Even though that was private property?
Yes, even though it was private property, because it was open to, remember, it was a golf course. You could go in and pay to play. You could enjoy the community benefit of a clubhouse, tennis courts, and golf course. And what happens is it's always had beautiful wildlife. It's always had open green space, particularly the Calusa Rookery that we're talking about, that has the tricolored
heron. People are not familiar with the word rookery. So what is that?
Basically, a rookery is a nesting, waiting place for birds. In particular, we have a tricolored heron, which is an endangered species. So the Fish and Wildlife got involved. We've had some beautiful pictures by Dennis Horn that took proof of the hatchlings.
People could see that on SaveCalusa.org.
Yes, on SaveCalusa.org. If you go, you can see the hatchlings and the birds that are currently living and breeding and nesting in the rookery.
And rookery is a place where the animals can go and rest up.
Correct.
right?
Mhm.
And
nest.
yes, right.
Very important.
And then they fly around, they go
Procreate.
do their stuff, and then they come back. That's there.
Correct.
And was that there all these years?
Yes, it's always been there. Because why? It was, like I said, an open green space. It was a golf course before. So has it definitely flourished a little bit more during these years that the golf course has been abandoned? Maybe a little bit, but it's always been there. It's not something that's new to the area. What is new to the area is wanting to build and convert this green space into basically a concrete jungle of 550 homes, gridlocked.
That's 550 homes
between
on 160 acres
Yes.
gross before roads get put in.
Correct.
Before, right?
Yes, before roads, before sidewalks, before everything. You're talking about 5,000 square foot lots that don't fit in. They don't trend into Calusa. Why? Our homes are 15,000 square foot lots surrounding the golf course.
I'm going to assume that
Mhm.
if you live in a not in an apartment in this homes that are there, you're going to have 2 cars,
Yeah, at
maybe
least.
3,
Mhm.
right? And I think we have David Winker is
Yeah.
going to be joining us. All right, David Winker is you're the attorney for SaveCalusa.org.
Correct. He's our attorney.
Mr. Winker, there he is, Mr. Winker extraordinaire. How are
Happy
you, sir?
Thanksgiving. I'm sorry I'm late.
Happy Thanksgiving.
And it's nice to see you. Oh, there we go. All right. And David's at a secret location. All right.
Direct from Houston. And I have to tell you, you look so festive in your purple.
Just for you, Mr. Winker. So you're the attorney for Save Calusa. You represented the organization in front of the county commission, and for the last year or so, I believe. So why don't you catch our viewers up to date? What's going on?
Yeah, so I'd like to talk. I'll talk some of the procedure. I mean, I think Vanessa can really, dig into what's happening in the community, as they call them, the green shirts.
Mhm.
And yeah, we got to get you decked out, Michael, in your green shirt. Where we're at is
triple X large, please.
yeah. I warn you, Vanessa. There's a lot of X's in that shirt.
Mhm.
Where we're at is last Wednesday, the commission passed it 10-2. The 2 dissenting votes were Commissioner Martinez and Commissioner Heyman. And really where we're at right now is we're exploring a couple possibilities, including, I feel very strongly the meeting was not properly noticed. You'll appreciate this, Michael, as a publisher of public notices, but basically they did not publish a required newspaper notice of meeting. And, it's interesting because in today's age, you would think, it's internet, it's people, are connected, but people do still find out about hearings from the paper, right? They still look up the hearings there. So unless you were, and Vanessa, you can correct me if I'm wrong, unless you lived in the immediate area, you did not know about or if you checked the actual Miami-Dade site, you would have seen it as as being rescheduled. But unless you lived in the area, you would not have seen a notice, because they only posted it on the property. And then they did a courtesy email to, I don't know if it was residents within 1,000 feet, Vanessa.
Yes, and not everybody, because I know of a couple residents that actually went the day that it was canceled and didn't know.
And didn't know about the new meeting.
And didn't know about the rescheduling.
So we're looking into that. We're looking into, we do feel like there's some other procedural irregularities, but really what we're focused on now is there's been such an outpouring of emotion, of activism as a result of this, and the disappointment of people who saw this. A lot of it channeled through Ron McGill and some powerful things that he said. And, basically 10 days expires on Saturday. It's unfortunate. It's through, it's through the holidays. But Michael, basically, we're hoping that the mayor will veto this decision at this point. We think that there's enough there for her to have real reasons for vetoing it.
So when something gets vetoed, do they typically give the reasons why, or do they just veto it and then it goes? In this case, it would go back to the commission to see if they had enough votes to overrule.
Right, exactly. Both parts are right. You say why, you give reasons why, and then it would go back, and then it could be overridden with a super majority vote. So typically you don't veto things as a politician unless you know you have the votes to uphold you. But we feel like there's been such an outcry in this that like maybe people will relook at their vote because of what happened. And Vanessa can speak to this, but I think as of this morning, Vanessa, you texted me. Was it over 4,000 letters have been sent to Kava?
Yes.
Asking her to veto.
Yes.
And so in these type of things, typically, the developer goes in, they want to get X, and the neighbors want some other X factor that's in there. So if this gets vetoed and it goes back to the commission, if they do not have enough votes to overturn it and overturn her veto, what's the next step after that?
Well, that's what we would look at our legal appeals. We have 30 days to appeal it. But going back a second, I mean, it's you've really hit the issue. It's when I think about my clients, and here's Vanessa. These are sophisticated people. They live in the community, and I think everyone kind of knew that the cat's out of the bag. There's going to be some level of development, right? They made it seem like we're telling them you can't do anything with this property. You need to leave it fallow. And that is, I don't think anyone, Vanessa, has been saying that. I think that the community has been saying, we understand that something's going to happen to the golf course. Let's make sure it integrates well with the community.
Yeah.
So we had Commissioner Joe Martinez of Kendall, right? He's been an advocate for less construction, better transportation methods. So I know that this probably got to him a lot.
Yes.
And on the other end, as far north as you can go, Commissioner Heyman is up there saying, I knew it was like the zoning was like 1 home per 5. I knew it'd be something more than that, but I didn't expect 500 and some odd homes.
Correct.
So, but I have to say something about that. It's interesting they say that because I stood up at the release of the covenant, and the residents stood up at the release of the covenant, and we said they're going to ask for 550 homes.
Right.
And,
they were like, why is Winker saying that? There's no evidence of that whatsoever. He's just trying to scare you. And then, of course, it comes along and it's 550. And it just, what she was saying was correct. Is like when we voted this, we voted it knowing that, what was it, Vanessa? 1 home per acre or something?
1 home per 5 acres. So at the max, it would be about 30 to 35 homes.
Yes.
On the 168 acres.
We went from 35 homes. And then I always tell people, the key here, Michael, is the developer was asking for something, right? They're asking to upzone from 35 homes to 550 homes. And so here's Vanessa living in the neighborhood and all her neighbors. And it's like, it's hard for me. Look Vanessa in the eye and say like, well, Vanessa, let's look at what you're getting in exchange for your commissioner allowing this.
Right.
And so it's literally nothing. They're getting nothing.
Yeah.
So I live in horse country, and there are plenty of homes that are now being built on 2.5 and 5 acre homes. We're talking, and some on 10. Big houses, all right, lots of money, not much traffic, I might add. So maybe there's some sort of balance in there. But I remember a couple of years ago, I think the developer wanted 1,100 or 1,400 homes. So they're down to this 550, which is probably originally, what they wanted. But going back to, so if this commission says, you know what, there's not enough votes to overturn the mayor's veto. And they go, all right, so what happens after that? Let's say you're lucky enough to where those two things happen. So what then, homeowners and Mr. Turney?
Okay, well, what we really would like to see is definitely for Mayor Cava to veto this vote. And then for us to get a seat at the table as the community, as the neighbors. We should have a seat at the table. So we should be heard. And that's the one thing that we are asking our commissioner to do, is to hear us, to sit with us, to hear us, to really do the correct analysis and studies that should be done for the wildlife, to really do realistic traffic plans and things that an irresponsible development would how it would truly affect the community and all of West Kendall. That's why
Are you
Commissioner
saying
Martinez.
that you haven't had face-to-face with these people?
Absolutely not. We had zero face-to-face. We have zero community benefits. Okay. The studies, it is incredible. The reason we found out about the wildlife is because our small organization, SaveCalusa.org, which are basically a bunch of neighbors who love our community, got together and just have been trying anything and everything and pulling at strings and pulling at heartstrings of very good, dedicated people who love wildlife, who have come to help us. Okay, the developer didn't discover this Calusa rookery. We did. Okay, we are the ones that have done the studies that really should have been done, like Ron McGill said, by outside sources that don't have any vested interest in this development.
As I said, I live in horse country, and we were at a hearing, a zoning hearing at County Hall, and our commissioner, Commissioner Javier Soto, if you will, made us on site go meet with the developer.
Mhm.
When we were there, you go meet, come back in 2 hours, all right?
We would have appreciated
All right.
that.
And so,
Very much so.
and in that case, nothing came of it. But we had a conversation with it, so we could say we met with them, and these are points that are okay, and here's the sticky points. So you're saying you never got that?
No, we haven't had that opportunity. And we have a list of points that we would love to be able to sit with the developer. The developer gave us a virtual meeting presentation, and it was not open forum. They did not listen to any of our concerns. Even the one request that was given from Parks and Recreations to provide a park was not taken into consideration. So it's just, we just feel completely and utterly ignored. And then we expected the commissioner to do right by us, a servant of the people, to really represent her community, and she didn't.
So from my political point, Mr. Winker, if the person that has the veto power recognizes that he or she is going to get overturned, typically what gets done? Do they vote their conscience, or they vote for the political awareness of that?
Yeah, you would vote. Typically they don't like to be, to have their veto overturned. It is a sensitive thing for them. They want their veto pen to have power, and if it's ineffectual, it's not something they often do. I think here, because she voted against this in the past, and I think because of the environmental concerns, it would be consistent with her, with what she believes in, to say, I don't care, I'm going to vote for the right thing, and to do it and then see what happens. I think the thing is, what Vanessa and Amanda Prieto and the Save Calusa people have done to bring to bear, these 4,500 letters, what Ron McGill has done, that will be directed toward the other commissioners if we get past this, right? And let's see if we can't change minds. Let's see if we can't shock the world and get people to say, you know what, these guys are right. And it's interesting because I have two things I want to react to. Is, first of all, you're sitting there with Vanessa. Vanessa is very pleasant. These people, they don't bite. And for the commissioner to come meet with them and listen to their concerns. And it's interesting you said about meeting with the developer. The Plaza development in Coral Gables is this hated development, right? It's completely outsized. The neighbors hate it. And I represent a group called the Ponce Neighbors. And in the craft section, just north of the development, and they're just getting brutalized. It's a really bad situation. And the city facility, whatever you want to say, and I have a lot of fights with Coral Gables also, but the way the city handled this dispute was they worked it out. There were some promises given about some things that were going to be done with streets and making sure construction, parking, and it wasn't going to happen. Well, it wasn't being done. And the way the city reacted was they set up a meeting on the street, right? It was in COVID, but it was on the street. I remember it was so hot, but we met on the street where the problem was. And there's the residents. There's me. Their city attorney had to come out, right? Because I'm there. So we had the city attorney. And then up walks the developer. Up walks the developer to face the 60 angry residents. And, there's that's when the magic happens, right?
Yes.
And that guy was like, he literally was like, what's going on? What are you guys upset about? And the residents this is what we're upset about. And it was like they just, and these developers, whatever you want to say about them, they're used to making deals, right? They're used to solving problems so they can move forward. And they just could you live with this? if I promise to do this, and it just got hashed out there. And it just, it didn't solve the overall problem, but it makes an impression on the residents when people just show up and like take the heat. So I found it very interesting to be there, because there's GL Homes, right? There's Richard from GL Homes talking about how great a person they are, what a great company they are. And I was thinking about these people in the green shirts, as they're referred to. They've never spoken a word to GL Homes, right? That guy's never reached out to them. Their voice has never been heard. And it's almost like, whether you agree, if you think Vanessa's, just full of crap and we should just pave the whole thing, I think we can all agree that that process is a bad process. And I think that that is part of why we're here today, is like people are outraged. And the thing that happened was, I see this all the time. I always say, like, I'm like a trauma surgeon. I'm in front of cities, municipalities every day, as you know. And, I see how, I know what the sausage factory looks like, right? And it's not pleasant, but I'm used to it. And you have people like Vanessa, people like Amanda, moms, business people, they show up and they're so outraged by what they see, right? They're like, this cannot be how my local government functions. And in this case, you just happen to have Ron McGill, who I've never seen at county before, right? I've never seen him at the county. They said it was, I think on the Dan Le Batard show, he said it was the second time he'd ever shown up for anything. And he was so outraged by what he saw. And that's what's getting national press, right? Because, he has a national forum, but he just, he felt what everyone, what all these moms are feeling, what all these dads are feeling, what all these people have lived there for 40 years have this feeling of like, what is this? Like, this is not what I signed up for. I didn't know that this is how the process works.
One of the things that you brought up, Vanessa, is you want to sit at the table and have the discussion and try to work something out that everybody can agree to. Because when it's all said and done, you want to know that you did your best and you met with them, and to be able to report to you inside. And the people that want to keep a certain standard of living and not have another 1,000 or 1,200 people living.
Absolutely.
Right there.
It's what I say. We live with the consequences. The developer will leave making a profit, okay, which is fine. This is a capitalist country, right? However, we live with the consequences of your actions. So at least give us a seat at the table so that we can tell you, listen, we can live with a community park. We can live with less homes. We can live with an ungated community. Why not? Why can't we make this beautiful development now? If we have to have it, if we absolutely have to have this development, why can't we live with a beautiful development that we can all compromise with community benefits?
So, Mr. Waker, nine commissioners voted for it, 2 against it, and I think there was 1.
10. It was 10-2.
10-2. So, what's the message to those 10 commissioners that voted for it? What do you want? What if they were sitting right here? What do you want to ask them or tell them?
I love how you always ask that question. And what I would say is, we need you to look. You represent your community, and you can look at this through the lens of saying, like, this is Commissioner Raquel Regalato's community, and I'm going to do what she says. The problem with that thinking is, as Vanessa and Amanda have been saying, one of their themes is, our fight is your fight. This you may not give a crap about West Kendall, but this is going to happen to your community. And we need the commissioners to look at what's happening. And the process is even set up, Michael, where we just didn't even have an opportunity to get them to see the evidence, right? We were shut down at every turn. We put in letters saying, this isn't true. They haven't done these studies. They haven't done this stuff. And I don't really think, those commissioners that don't live in the district, that, I don't, they didn't speak up, right? My commissioner, Commissioner Higgins, Eileen Higgins, she didn't speak up. And I was thinking to myself, like, what does she really know about this? What evidence has she been given? All she has is a minute apiece for people to walk up there, for me to do my PowerPoint, to show them things. And it just, what we were hoping is somebody who was a yes vote would look at it, and see, like, what is this? What the hell's happening? Like, we haven't seen this before. So Michael, I'm thinking what I'd say to them is like just look at the independent evidence of what we're doing, and does this fit in with it? And could there have been a better compromise? Because I will tell you, like, if this was 300 homes and this was a 50-acre nature preserve or a 30-acre nature preserve and a 10-acre park, like my clients, these homeowners aren't maniacs. That would actually enhance their neighborhood, right? Have access to a park. There's things that could have been done to make this go. And I wish that the commissioner, our home commissioner, had done that work, right? I mean, to me, that's what it takes is Michael, I feel like we've talked about this before. There's this thing that's happening where I think, I'm 51 and I think I remember like just times where like politicians or people in leadership would just say, we got to put the brakes on this. I am 100% pro development. I have taken your money, developer. But if you do this, like this is going to harm all of us. Like we have to come up with a compromise.
And it's hard to see the benefit it is to that neighborhood for that development that was going to go in there. And one of the things that Mr. Winkler brought up is if there were some things in there that the community could enjoy, right, then that might be a little bit different. But what did Commissioner Hayman see when she said, no, I'm against it, all right? And she is one, Commissioner is probably the least affected. She's northeast Miami-Dade County. You can't go any farther north or east. So what did she see?
So Vanessa, you can speak to this too, but I mean, my recollection of where, I think that where she came from was she's seen this type of development, this infill development in her neighborhood and how destructive it was.
Right, and how irresponsible it was.
Right. And I can't remember it was her or Commissioner Martinez that brought up the fact of like, I just hate seeing this neighbor versus neighbor thing, right? Yeah. It's going to take a long time to heal this relationship between these neighbors, right? This weaponizing of one portion of the ring owners versus the non-ring owners, the ring owners that accepted the deal versus the ring owners that didn't accept the deal. And I think that they also looked at that to say like this sucks. Like this sucks. I don't like seeing the community in red and green shirts. That's destructive. We're supposed to be bringing people together. Like what can we agree on this project? So yeah, and I think Hayman also, Commissioner Hayman, I should say, she definitely brought up, or I think she focused on this idea of like, I was told by you guys that you were not going to ask for, when I lifted the covenant, I relied on you saying you weren't going to ask for a huge development. What happened to those promises? So, I don't think that you were honest with me. So
procedurally, somebody that voted for it could ask for a revote, or is that time already gone?
Yeah, I don't. The revote it's not going to happen. You'd have to have more people doing it. It's really going to come down to the veto, and it's going to come down. The path forward is the veto. And then a couple people, if we could get I think the magic number would be 5, right? So we have 2. And then Vanessa, who wasn't there that
I think Sosa wasn't there. And
exactly. Sosa wasn't there. We were hoping she would have been a no vote. And so, we'd have to turn 2 more people to uphold the veto. So that's where we're at.
Listen, if we can get people to just reevaluate. It's okay to reevaluate and have a do-over sometimes. That's life. I think it's important, to really take into consideration what Ron McGill said. You can't buy wildlife once it's gone. It's extremely, extremely true. We need to give that importance to wildlife, to green space. Why? Because once you've developed over it, that's it. It's gone. You can't buy it back. And if people would just reevaluate what is really going to happen and the effects and the consequences that we are going to have to live with by having 550 homes, tiny lots, gridlocked in the middle of our community in Kendall, it would be horrific to our environment. It would be horrific to our flooding. It would be horrific to our traffic. It would just be an enormous decrease in quality of life. And if we don't value that, then what do we value?
Thousands of people have been involved in this, right? And recently, because it's been the conversation's been elevated and escalated, more and more people are getting involved in it. I think the commission needs to look at this, say, yes, it's a controversial issue. Yes, it's been going on now for 10, 11, 12, 15 years. But again, what I heard is the neighbors want a seat at the table and have a conversation and to try to work out something. Did I hear that correctly,
Yes,
David?
a responsible development.
Right. And so that people feel good, because at the end of the day, if it's us versus them, it's usually the neighbors are against the developer. But in this case, it's almost chaos
Yes.
that is going on. I'm sure.
Well, the majority of the neighbors are all against this development.
Yes.
We have thousands and thousands of neighbors. And we need to be very clear that there are only about 120 neighbors that are for it. That is it.
So when you're in a decision maker like a commissioner,
Mhm.
you have people pulling you this way and people pulling you this way. So David, what if some of the commissioners, they need something to hang their hat on? What, in 2 minutes, why don't you tell us what they should be looking at and why they should not overturn, if it gets vetoed, why they should not try to overturn the
veto? I think that we have to look at South Florida as a whole, and we have to look at how we're going to solve our problems. And if we're going to start filling in our green space, filling up lakes, we are going to reduce the attractiveness of our community. I always say we have two things going for us: tourism and development. And everyone wants to be here. And every day, the headline on the local news, the headline on the local news is beach closed because it's full of fecal matter. As you see the bay, the fish kill on the bay, like that is what, if we don't balance development, it's like we're cannibalizing ourselves. If we don't make it a pleasant place to live, we're gonna hurt our other main industry, which is the beauty of our environment and the beauty of our community and why we want to live here. It was interesting. I'm here in Houston with my wife's family. Vanessa has ties to Houston. And I was out last night with somebody, and they were saying they're moving to Michigan, they're retiring, and they're moving to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And they were saying, like, we got a bigger house because we're expecting visitors. And they said, no one comes to visit us. We lived all over, and they're like, no one comes to visit us in Houston. No one wants to come to Houston. I actually like Houston for different reasons, but it's not a pretty place, right? It doesn't have a nice natural environment. I mean, it's a sprawling, paved place. And I really feel like, what is it about us in South Florida that we can't recognize the beauty of our green space? I've never lived in New York City, but like, what would happen if someone said, like, well, we need to develop Central Park? Like, it's like we have to mature into something where, to answer your question specifically, it's like, commissioners, our green space matters. It matters for our future, for our kids, for flexibility in the future when we have to have runoff areas and do things. So I just think that, and then the last thing I'd say is, like, we got to follow our rules. I mean, one of the things that we have is the part of the zoning, part of the comprehensive plan is no more of these cut off communities. No more, just building enclaves that are just locked in. Now, that's not part of what the county wants. And so what do they vote for? A locked in community in the middle of another community. I mean, it is exactly what they didn't want. So they're not even following their own rules. So we're like, follow the rules, do the work. Listen, one of the things that happened from this, like talking to Amanda and Vanessa, is this is where their heart was, I felt bad afterwards, and doing it. And one of the things that they both said was like, hey, this is a victory. We forced the county to recognize that there is a hatchery, that there are bats there, if we hadn't done that, they would have just bulldozed everything and not even done it. So that should be a wake up call, because it's like, how did the county not know this, right? And how did the county not know to address those concerns?
And that's one of the reasons that Mr. Zhu, Ron McGill, spoke up, because he recognized that, and he certainly is an authority on that. And I've been raising exotic birds for my entire life. I understand the importance of that, and to keep our animals and our friends, our furry friends going. So again, when we look at this, the county commission, we want them to take a look at this, get the group at the table, thousands of people involved. I've never seen so much PR going on. All right. across the country, especially on this region, about an issue concerning this golf course. So you certainly have done a lot to bring this to the surface. And if you haven't listened to, who is that? Was that Dan Levitar? Or is that
Yep.
it's a 20-minute thing. You can find it where you listen to podcasts. It's really tremendous. Ron was really open. My hat's off to him for going there as a private citizen. And how would you like it, folks, that here's a guy that's known throughout the world, and imagine if he didn't speak up, we'd be pointing the finger, Ron McGill, why didn't you speak up? All right. And so my hat's off to him for getting there and for doing it. And I only wish that the county commission had given him a few more minutes and deference to his position, the things that he's done throughout the world. And by the way, if you want to make a donation to the Ron McGill Endowment Fund, all right, you can help animals throughout the world. And one of the things that Ron told us, we asked him, how do you get good pictures? Great pictures. He says, take a lot of them. All right. So that's one of the things that we know. I'm delighted that you're so involved in the community.
Thank you.
I'm delighted that our good friend over here, David Winker, is representing you. And he's true to what he does, all right? And the causes that he protects and represents. My hat's off to you, David. And I owe you lunch at our favorite joint on Bird Road.
You got it. And the last thing I would say about all that, it's interesting because I had a developer, a lobbyist for a developer, call me, and he's on the other side, and he said, David, you all, you, the community, the green shirts, like you did everything you could do. Like that was like the perfect storm of bringing it. And it's interesting because I think about like that's one thing that Nick Saban always says when he's coaching. He's like he's like, I don't win or lose. I want the other side like to not want to play Alabama, right? Win or lose, we're going to be a tough opponent, and that's how these women are. That's how these dads were. That's how this community has been to fight this. And I think that we have to build on this to say like this, this is moving the needle. And that's the last thing that I would say. You're asked like what I want to say to the commissioners is like, look at people mobilizing. This is what democracy looks like. And we want to encourage this. This only makes our community better. It sucks that we're fighting about it, but like, let's take this engagement and turn it into something positive. I'm a businessman. You're a businessman. Vanessa's a businesswoman. It's like, we all know that if they would come to the table and this was something we all could get behind, imagine like how much nicer this would look. This isn't a binary choice. And that's what the developer and the commissioner have really turned it into. Like, this is, it's either this or just leave it empty. And that's not the truth. And that's why we've ended up here. And so I would tell everyone, we got to look at this as like, what's the solution? And I think what's frustrating to us business people like me and Vanessa is we all know there's a solution. It's not complicated.
Right. There are other options,
I do. By the way, one of the things we've recognized with the new administration, with Mayor Cava, she's paying a lot more attention to the environment. Biscayne Bay is getting cleaned up. There's a new license plate that's out there, and that we're trying to clean up the 120,000 septic tanks out in Miami-Dade County. We've got the sea rise issues, right? We have the health of people. And the county has gone out of its way to get COVID injections available to anybody that want them, especially to those that are not as connected as we are. So we know that this administration cares more than ever before. And I think it's time for this administration to stand up and let's get these folks to the table.
Right.
And so, Mr. Winker, thank you very much. Enjoy your stay in Houston and take care of your family, and happy Thanksgiving. And we're gonna check out here again. Vanessa Vazquez with SaveCalusa.org. Please feel free to go to the website. Again, thank you for being here.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
it.
much.
Mr. Winker,
Appreciate it.
See you later.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Have a great Thanksgiving.
You too.
Thanks. Folks, again, thanks for joining us live with Miami's Community News. Stay involved and have a good weekend. Bye.